Big day when it came to asylum, because these new proposals put out there by the Home Secretary, Priti Patel. I'm delighted to be joined by Jason Isaacs. You'll know him very well from his rather impressive acting career. Harry Potter is something that none of us can really forget. But you are an ambassador for the Red Cross, as I understand it.
Having run around dressed up as a wizard has given me some amazing opportunities to travel and see people who do real jobs in the world. That thing has been demystified for me. Who are these refugees, this faceless hordes we're told are invading the country? And and I would urge anyone watching and listening and looking at graphs being told numbers are high or low and not being able to quite make sense of it, if you have a strong opinion about refugees, it should be based on someone you've met. I've been privileged enough to meet lots of them through the Red Cross, and the proposals today, I'm not speaking as a Red Cross executive here, I'm speaking individually, they are studiedly neutral, politically neutral, I think are disgraceful and inhumane, and are setting up a two-tiered system for the people who arrive here in the only way they can, out of desperation, fleeing war, poverty, rape, slavery, some of the worst, most biblical hell imaginable, and they will then be punished for that and unable to have full access to the protection and care that a civilized country like ours should offer.
I mean, speak to those many people in this country who passionately believe that too many asylum seekers come here. Speak to them.
Well, it's interesting. That's true also of many of my friends who would, I'm sure, label themselves as liberal and left-leaning, Guardian reading, whatever. And when it comes up and you scratch the surface, they go, but I mean, how many can you accept? Can we open the doors? I have to remind them that in this world in which there are tens of millions of displaced people, first of all, the vast majority, 90% of them from these poor, war-torn countries, settle in their neighbours' countries. So the Rohingya, there are, for a while, 1 million Rohingya in Bangladesh. Greece has taken the vast majority of the brunt of people who come from Eritrea and Yemen and places to get to Europe. France takes more than twice the number of asylum seekers we do. Germany takes more than 3 times as many. So we are an island. And those people who do get here, who are desperate and terrified enough to risk drowning in the Channel, often after walking across continents, seeing their family, their loved ones. I'm sorry to be so blunt, it's a late night show, but I've met numbers of them, raped or dismembered or tortured or other things. When they get here, they're prepared to drown rather than put up with the situation they find themselves in. I met a young girl when I was in Italy, for instance, in a Red Cross refugee camp. She's no older than my daughter. She'd been kept as a sex slave in Yemen for a couple of years. She managed to not escape. What they do to a lot of the slaves in Yemen who they have working in the labor camps there is, instead of killing them en masse, because it might attract attention, is they push them out to sea, essentially on pieces of wood. They haven't paid smugglers. They're just sent out to drown. We're not for the NGOs. They wouldn't be rescued. That's one of many people I've met who have endured unimaginable medieval hell. And so the notion that they should be punished when they get here, or that they can't immediately turn up the authorities and give a full and articulate account in order to be qualified as asylum, be granted asylum, is so at odds with how we picture ourselves. So what I would say to those people who have a view of refugees, what they think refugees are, is you're entitled to your opinion, but base it on something real. So there are drop-in centres at every single every mosque and synagogue and church in the country. There, the Red Cross do extraordinary work with refugees, but there are many places you can go and meet someone. And when you meet someone and see, well, this is one of those young men I was told is coming here purely for economic opportunity. Yeah. Jason, and then you find out their village was burnt,
Jason,
or their parents lost their limbs.
I've just got to interrupt you. I've got to interrupt you for a second, so we've got to go to a break, but I do want to come back to talk to you in a minute, particularly about what they would therefore do about these awful criminal gangs that are involved in smuggling people into the country, and lots more from Amber and Yvette as well. See you in a second. So Jason Isaacs still with me. Jason, you were giving an absolutely heartrending account.
I was on a rant. I apologise. No, on a soapbox.
No.
It's frustrating.
Honestly, it was very important and moving. But, nonetheless, I'm sure you would agree that these criminal gangs, these smugglers, have to be discouraged.
No. I'll tell you where I disagree with you, Robert. Okay. I think it's a distraction from the main conversation. The conversation is, there are these people, they managed to find their way to our country. They're going to get here somehow or other. We're now shutting down the means they can get here and punishing them for doing so. Whether they come out on a dinghy or a bath or they swim, the fact is that we have all these people here and they're not allowed to work or be productive. I met a wonderful kid who taught himself 7 languages, wants to be an astrophysicist, but he's not allowed to go and volunteer anywhere. I met a guy whose whose asylum was turned down. He's appealing for years. He's visiting dementia patients for free every day. There are all these extraordinary people who are so grateful to be here, and they want to contribute. And they want to be grateful and build British society and make a contribution, and they're not allowed to. The problem is that the conversation is hijacked by the stuff that is sexier, like criminal gangs and smuggling. But actually, people will find a way to get here. They always have. It's like drugs will find a way to be distributed.
Jason, if you could just...
Different conversation we need to have.
If you could just bear with me for a second. I want to go to Yvette. Yvette, this is obviously a subject that you've immersed yourself in for some time. This issue of criminal gangs, do you agree with Jason that it's just a distraction?
I think you do have to take action on the criminal gangs, and that should involve working closely with France, with the French authorities, with Europol, about trying to prevent those criminal gangs throughout the system, because often they're also exploiting particularly young people, children and teenagers who get caught up with this sort of exploitation as part of the criminal gangs as well. But part of that has to be about having safe legal routes. So we know that, for example, there are more children and teenagers in camps in Greece with no one to look after them who have family here in the UK. And yet they're now having to wait much longer. The systems that helped reunite them with family who could care for them in the UK have been taken away. So for all the government talks about safe legal routes, they've actually made it harder. And that means for those young people, those vulnerable young people, they're now more likely to get sucked into the dangerous criminal gangs, more likely to try and make a dangerous journey rather than to be able to reunite safely instead.
I mean, Amber, the Home Secretary, Priti Patel, said today that she implied anyway, that she would open up more what she thinks of as legal routes for asylum seekers.
Yes.
But the amount of legal traffic to this country in that sense is close to nil at the moment. You know, the Dub scheme closed down. We didn't take anybody from these Greek refugee camps. Do you have any confidence that she will actually do that and extend an arm to those people who really need it?
Yes, because the only, just to sort of answer some of Jason's criticisms, the only legitimacy for doing this is to say that we are going to open up safe and legal routes. So the people who Jason describes, the people who come here who are entitled to asylum because they are fleeing a war-torn country, for instance, we need to make sure that there are routes for them to come here. At the moment, there aren't. I mean, you know, we had the Syrian resettlement programme, which took the most vulnerable people from the region and worked, and was closed when we finished it in 2020.
Compared to, for example, what Germany has done in this sphere, we've done nothing.
No, we have. In terms of resettlement from the region, we've done a lot. We've done more than most European countries. But you're right, the numbers...
It's 5,000 people a year.
It has been... No, it's not nonsense. It may be too little.
Oh, sorry, it's a minute number. Sorry, that's rude of me. What I mean is it's a tiny number compared to far poorer countries around the world who are absorbing much larger numbers of people and helping them rebuild their lives.
This is different. This is resettling from the region, and the whole proposal coming from the government at the moment is about making a change and having more resettlement for the region so we have less illegal. Now, I hope it will work, but until we actually see what the resettlement programme is, it's difficult to say that it's not legitimate. It is legitimate.
But isn't that right, Jason, that to an extent the jury has to be out until we see... If the Home Secretary comes back with no resettlement...
The Home Secretary stood up today in Parliament. She was very clear and quite specific about the levels of punishment and the fear that people who arrive by a boat or other illegal means will face for the rest of their life in Britain. They will never be fully settled. They won't have access to the same mechanisms to bring their family here. So those are quite specific. But when it came to opening legal resettlement routes, so what replaced the Dublin arrangement, and for local resettlement, she was incredibly vague, and we have to promise, we trust her on faith that those things are going to appear. That's not the way to do it. Create all the legal routes for people to arrive and mechanisms for them to be nurtured and build their lives here, and then you'll be able to close down the illegal routes because they won't be needed anymore.
No, but
that's the order it should go in.
I don't disagree with the fact that you're going to have both. I don't believe she would get this bill through Parliament unless it's actually set out what the resettlement routes are. You can't just have one side without saying what the other side is. Well, there will be a consultation. It will take time.
I'd like to agree with you, but, you know, we have a history in Britain and other places of ignoring sending people back on boats in the 1940s to be killed by in Germany, of ignoring the Armenian genocide, although there were many conferences and leagues and discussions of ignoring what was going on in the Balkans in the 90s, We have, it's a long history of ignoring crises under our noses. Of people
we have a
so look, I'm afraid both Amber and Jason and I could talk about this all night, but sadly we're out of time. That's it. If you want to see how bonkers I went during this lockdown, stay tuned for All-Star Musicals in just a couple of minutes. Thanks to Amber, thanks to Yvette. This programme's taking a 2-week Easter break. See you soon.